Judas Priest are about to kick off their Shield of Pain tour, but they've already been on tour for like a year, so what is there to be excited about? Well, there's actually something very unique and very special about this one. The difference, and it's not a small one, is that this time the band will be celebrating the 35th anniversary of Painkiller, arguably the most important and influential album of their career. And at the same time, they're still supporting their latest masterpiece, Invincible Shield, which is considered by many, myself included, to be by far the most worthy successor to Painkiller. So of course, this is a big moment for the band and for us fans, so let's talk about what this tour means and which songs could potentially be on the set list. On a personal level, Painkiller is an album that means a whole lot to me. It blew my mind when I first heard it, and I just connected with it in a very deep way. I mean, I used to listen to this thing every single day. From Painkiller to One Shot at Glory, there wasn't a single song that I ever wanted to skip. It's basically a perfect album. It also caught most of us off guard because it was unexpectedly heavy, dark, and menacing. I still remember my cousin calling me from the record store HMV saying, "I just heard some of the new Judas Priest album and it's insane. This thing sounds like Pantera. I'm buying it now, come to my house in an hour because you really need to listen to it today." The previous album, Ram It Down, was something of a transition from turbo to a heavier sound, and while it did have some strong moments, especially the title track and Blood Red Skies, it was rather inconsistent, and the single Johnny Be Good would have made more sense if it had been on turbo. So when my cousin was comparing the new album to Pantera, who had recently released an absolutely sick album entitled Cowboys from Hell, that didn't make any sense to me at all, but I was definitely curious. So when I got to his house, he showed me the CD, and already the album cover alone looked way more intense than the typical Priest cover. When he pressed play, the title track started, and my eyes literally popped out of my head. The new drummer, Scott Travis, sounded absolutely amazing. There was never anything even remotely resembling that kind of drumming on a Judas Priest song before. Then that monster riff hit, and I just felt like I couldn't even swallow. Ever feel like that when you're just so full of emotions that your body almost shuts down for like a minute? It was like that for every single song. The Painkiller tour was also the first time that I ever saw Judas Priest live, and I was living in Montreal at the time, which is where the tour started. And what a show that was. There was even a legit Spinal Tap moment. Let me tell you about that. So they were opening with Hellbent for Leather, and there was this panel underneath the drum riser that looked like 3 speakers. The panel would open, and Rob would roll onto the stage on his Harley. Well, this was opening night, so I guess something wasn't set right, or I don't know what, but basically, they couldn't get the panel open. So you're hearing the motorcycle revving, the panel starts to lift, and you can see the light peering out from the bottom. There's more revving, everyone's cheering and getting all pumped up, but the panel is clearly stuck. And after about 45 seconds, it just closes. Finally, the band starts the song, big pyro goes off, and Rob walks onto the stage. They get through the whole show, and they had 2 encores, the first of which was Painkiller. And right at the end of that song, I guess is when they managed to get the stage fixed. So Rob leaves the stage, we're hearing revving sounds again, the door opens with smoke and lights, and just in time for the last song, which I believe was You've Got Another Thing Coming, out comes Rob on the Harley with his arm up, and I swear it was exactly like Derek Smalls finally getting his pot open at the end of rock and roll creation. Invincible Shield also caught me by surprise, but almost for the opposite reason. Redeemer of Souls was a good album. The first one without KK Downing, it had some strong songs on it, and their new guitarist, Richie Faulkner, did an awesome job stepping into some gigantic shoes. But when Firepower came out, it was like, wow, how the hell did Judas Priest go from a farewell tour a few years earlier to releasing an album this good? It was definitely more along the lines of where Painkiller left off, and the songwriting was just top quality, as were the arrangements and the overall production. I mean, the album sounds fantastic. So with an album of that caliber and Glenn Tipton having to retire from performing, they could have easily chosen to go out on a high note. But no, they started to work on another album amid the various challenges and delays that came with a global pandemic. And truthfully, I really didn't think it was possible to outdo Firepower. And I didn't really expect that from them either. I just thought it was awesome that they were still going to be putting out new music, because you surely don't want a band that you've loved for your whole life to become like a nostalgia act. So when I heard the first single, Panic Attack, at the end of 2023, and it started with that cinematic intro and then that tight and mean pedal point riff, I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. Then, when that Turbo Lover-esque effect hit, I felt the same overwhelming rush of emotions as I did 33 years before with Painkiller. And it was pretty much the same thing with each of the 3 singles that followed. By the time The Serpent and the King was released, with that stained glass vibe of the chorus, I knew this was going to be at least as good as Firepower. And as it turned out, they actually managed to top that album. I consider Invincible Shield to be one of the band's best albums ever, and definitely one of the best heavy metal albums of the last 30 years, if not the best. As a guitarist, I also love that there are so many great guitar moments on there. The intro and solo to Crown of Horns, the solo on Gates of Hell, and the title track alone is filled with killer riffs, harmonies, and fantastic lead guitar playing. So, Shield of Pain is essentially a celebration of these 2 huge moments in Judas Priest's 50-year history, 34 years apart. And although they haven't really given away very much about what the shows are going to be like, they did say that it's going to be a big stage production and that the set list is going to be, and I quote, rare and unique. Now, considering they've recently played some deeper cuts like Jawbreaker, The Sentinel, Saints in Hell, and Devil's Child, rare and unique has me intrigued. One thing they did confirm, however, is that they will not be performing Painkiller in its entirety. So with that in mind, let's get to my predictions, and I think it'll be fun to see how many songs I'll have guessed right. First of all, I think they'll split the set list a bit like Iron Maiden did with Somewhere in Time and Senjutsu on the Future Past tour. So it would be like maybe 5 songs from Painkiller, 5 from Invincible Shield, maybe 5 or 6 big hits, and perhaps even 2 or 3 surprises. So from Painkiller, I would say obviously Painkiller, Hell Patrol, A Touch of Evil, Nightcrawler, and Between the Hammer and the Anvil. Now that last one, I'm not really sure though, because they could also decide to do One Shot at Glory, or maybe even Leather Rebel, since they're songs that they haven't really played all that often. But Between the Hammer and the Anvil was a bigger song overall, so I don't know. I love that song, so it's the one that I'm hoping for. From Invincible Shield, I think the title track, Crown of Horns, and Panic Attack, those have to be included. Then I'm thinking it'll be Gates of Hell, and then either The Serpent and the King and Trial by Fire, since they haven't really played either of those 2. Or maybe Fight of Your Life or As God Is My Witness would be pretty cool too. Then we have the almost obligatory Breaking the Law, Electric Eye, Hellbent for Leather, Living After Midnight, and You've Got Another Thing Coming. Metal Gods, I think, would really fit on this tour. It just seems so appropriate. And finally, for surprises, personally, I'd love to hear The Sentinel, Screaming for Vengeance, or Stained Glass, but even if they go with more crowd favorites like Sinner, The Ripper, or Green Manalishi, I'd still be perfectly happy with that. For those of us who are not only fans of heavy metal music, but who have made it a way of life, I believe it's extremely important to celebrate these milestones wholeheartedly. Get to one of the shows if you can, and if you can't attend live, you can and definitely should still celebrate by watching and engaging with the various videos that people will be sharing. I'm going to be seeing the show in Norway in just a few days on June 14th, and then I'll be seeing them here in Toronto with Alice Cooper in September. And we're also thinking of going to one of the US shows as well, if we can make it work. Let me know in the comments if and when you're planning on seeing the show and which song or songs you'd like to hear most. It's always so cool to share and compare thoughts on things like that. I'll let you know my thoughts on the show when I get back from Europe, and I will definitely be making a retrospective video on the Painkiller album, especially because for those of us who play guitar, there's just so much incredible stuff on that thing. Riffs, licks, solos, harmonies, intertwining parts. It's like a metal guitar manual, so definitely be on the lookout for that a little later this year. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned for more licks of the Priest. I've been waiting at least 3 years to say that. Cheers.